everybody, and welcome to another exciting, fun-filled, expeditious episode of Radiorama, where, as the name entails, I show you how to work on radios, sometimes televisions, sometimes stereos, but anything that tends to run on glowing, beautiful vacuum tubes from the 1930s through about the 1960s. And today we have a 1948 Delco R1238 5-tube All-American 5 radio. It's kind of an interesting brand because there's really not many models that they made. Delco did a lot of car radios initially, and then General Motors wanted the car radios for their cars, so they bought the brand. And afterwards, it seems like they didn't really make a lot of, household radios. But this is one of them, and it's another set that we are going to restore for an upcoming auction later next month. And so I shouldn't even mention it because probably 2 years from now people will be like, well, what is it? It's like, well, it happened 2 years ago. But anyway, I don't know if it works or not. I'm going to go ahead and try it out. Generally, I'll bring sets up on a Variac. I'm less concerned about AA5s because if something catastrophic happens, what will happen is that the little quarter-watt resistor that's in the top of the filament string will just pop open. So let's go ahead and... Oh wow, it already hums at startup. Let me see if it does anything after final warm-up. Safe to say there's something very seriously wrong with the radio. The fact that that happens as soon as you turn it on, couldn't think of what that could be. It could be a shorted tube, it could be a short in the circuitry, could be shorted capacitors. Who knows? Not sure what the condition of this is, whether it's been worked on ever. It's a very pretty set. I mean, got a little bit of elegance and class to it, but nevertheless, we're going to need to do a minimum of recapping it, and of course, we need to figure out why it's not working. Okay, so I pulled the chassis out. I mean, you really can't look at tubes and tell whether they're really good or bad, but if I'm looking for something that's really egregious, like is there any severe burn marks? Actually, I'm looking at the edge of the rectifier tube, and it looks like that's the plate, and the plate has some weird shit going on that edge there. It's like it's spot welded. So there's a possibility that guy is shorted. But I want to take the bottom off so I can look at the inside of the guts to see what else could be possibly causing it to be very unhappy. Alright, well, here is the bottom extracted. There's like very little here. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paper caps and then 2 electrolytics. And that is a replacement, I can tell, because it's just been like jerry-rigged and shoved in there. But it's old enough to where it's probably also bad. But again, I'm very suspicious about that tube. Ordinarily, I would just say, well, I'm going to start with the electrolytics and then test it. But I think what I'm going to actually do is test the tube first, because it does look suspicious, but it could be totally fine. Never know. That's why you need a tube tester. Okay, well, the rectifier tube is fine, and so is the output tube. So I suspect probably at least the electrolytics are shorted. So it's easy enough to replace those, and then we can test it again to see if it's going to work. Okay, next step, replace the 2 values that are inside that capacitor. And I'm not going to look at it because I know it's 50 microfarads, because this is the most generic All-American 5 circuit design ever. So I'm going to replace both of those inside that one can with these 2 guys, and you can see the miracle of technology, how much smaller those are than this gigantic thing here. And I'm going to put one here because we can just jumper the positive and the negative here is the common, negative, and then the other one I might have to run a longer jumper cable from that to the common ground here. So probably put the negative of one cap here, the positive of here, and then we'll try this out again and see if that resolved our weird humming issue. So I wanted to show you guys something. Check out this capacitor here. You see how it's not even soldered in, it's just sitting here like loosely. That could cause all kinds of problems. So I think, I'm going to replace this capacitor also, because if it's been sitting there like that, probably there's been a lot of, resistance built up in that loose connection, and that could probably have easily zapped that thing. But I've got one capacitor replaced here, and I'm just going to run a jumper cable. I cut this to go from this location to here. We'll share a negative. Alright, so we got both of our electrolytics installed here, and that cap that was loose and wiggly. So let's plug it back in and see if anything different happens. Alright, we'll know right away if anything has changed. First of all, there's no immediate buzz, which is what was happening when we first tried it out, so we know already something has resolved itself. And the pilot light is doing its thing. Okay, the radio works, but we've got very low bottom, very low volume. So let's see if we got any loose tubes. Well, we probably have a bunch more leaky or shorted capacitors in there, because if there was that worse of a connection, then probably a lot of other things got damaged down the line, and I would suspect that those capacitors could have possibly been damaged pretty badly. Okay, so I've got it all recapped, and I tried it out, and I'm still not getting very good audio, and I think I have something that's happening that I believe is related to one of the tubes that I haven't tested yet. So you see our pilot light gets going, and then we get some audio. That pilot light is acting like a shorted out rectifier. So, and the thing I'm finding with my Hickok TV7 is that it doesn't always catch shorted rectifier tubes, or shorted 35Z5s rather, everything else. So it's a little aggravating, so sometimes I have to just assume that maybe that tube is bad, because when you see the pilot light glowing brilliantly like it's about to blow, that's a good indicator that your rectifier is shorting somewhere. Yeah, welcome to day 2 working on the Delco, and long story short, audio is fine. It's getting, the radio signal is very weak, and I was going through just the basics. B plus was fine, a little low, but fine. And I started working my way back from the rectifier and got the 12SQ7 and found that this resistor, I believe it's a 10 meg resistor, is open. So I need to find one of these guys and stick it in there. Otherwise, I think it's not passing the signal. All right, so I've replaced the resistor. And let's see if we get any more action out of this guy. I can't help but think that has to have something to do with it not working right. Because 12SQ7 definitely has a lot to do with radio reception. Nope. When the audio is there, Wondering about that resistor. If one resistor was open, there's a good chance maybe others are open. All right, well, it's been about a week or so since I touched this thing, and what I did was I could not figure out why it was playing so quietly. Like all the voltages and everything were just fine. And so I did what I usually do, which is when I can't figure it out, I take it in and let another technician who's smarter than me take a look at it. And what it boiled down to is I was reading the schematic incorrectly. Maybe not incorrectly, but this quote-unquote resistor and this resistor were actually not resistors. I'm not sure if the previous person who was in here messed up or what. There were definitely resistors there, but in the schematic, those are supposed to be capacitors, like 500 puff capacitors. That's real specific to a tuned circuit. So it's now
Why not take a shot? That'd be the time.
Now working well. Ouch! I just got bit a little bit. You know why? Because I'm in wet sandals. I had to work on my truck. I was leaking oil. And so I cleaned off my driveway. My feet are soaking wet. That said, all I got was a little bit of a tingle because we've got that 0.01 rated cap. So it wasn't like I got bit. It was just like it was a little bit of a surprising tingle. So that's the worst that you'll ever feel off of this. Not that I'm saying you should do that. You shouldn't like voluntarily try to touch the chassis. And in this one, it's almost impossible because it's got a back cover and the knobs are squarely covering the shafts. So I'm going to put this back in the case and hopefully it'll be good, and we'll call it a day on this radio. Okay, so it's all back together again and seems to be working pretty well.
Then you look at, you know what? Team's not.
I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, this is good to go. It, along with about 75 of its radio brethren, will be available at our auction. Look up Radio Day by the Bay 2023, July 22nd. You can do remote bids, including bidding on this radio. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, I'll try to get to them in the comments section. If you like this channel, make sure and press that like button. If you don't like it, you can press it. You don't like it, it's fine. Either way. So until the next time something comes across my workbench, I'll see you guys next time. Adios.